What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. We are going on an architecture boat cruise today. Now, I have lived in Chicago over 3 years and I have never done an architecture boat cruise. I don't know what took me so long because it was so freaking gorgeous, first of all. Such a pretty day on the Riverwalk, and it was so educational and I learned so much. We actually are super lucky today because it's super windy in Chicago. The windy city. Some people say that's because of politicians, some people say it's because of the actual wind, but either way, it's hella freaking windy in the city. When I was filming this boat tour, I really just expected that the wind would be so bad I would have to do a voiceover for it, but we got super lucky. We're able to understand and make out everything that the boat tour guide, Becky, shout out to you, was saying, and there really wasn't that much wind. We do hear some traffic on the bridges and we hear wind later on in the vlog, but it's really not that bad. And I wasn't using a professional microphone because I just expected to do a voiceover the entire time. But I didn't want to change what she was saying. I wanted to keep it as is. So what you are seeing are basically just the raw files. I didn't edit it that much, and I wanted to take you guys with me and allow you to get the Chicago experience. Some wind or no wind, but there, like I said, there really wasn't that much wind. The tour guide also recommended this book, and of course I was the first person to buy it on Amazon as soon as she got done. It's called The Devil in the White City. Even though I just started it, it's super good. Already has my attention, so I will link that in Amazon down below. Awesome. Awesome to learn about the history of Chicago, the city that I live in. Before we get into the boat cruise, we actually stumbled on an art festival or a little art pop-up, and these artists came out and showed their work, and they are so beautiful. One of them immediately got my attention. This beautiful woman and this couple's paintings and the piano man, and this artist was just so incredibly talented. And unfortunately, I didn't have too much time to look around because we immediately had to get on that boat. We had already missed our boat cruise from an hour earlier because traffic sucks, but that's where we're at. So I really hope you guys enjoy this vlog, and I will see you in my next one.
The Wrigley Building from 1924. This was built Wrigley corporate headquarters, as in Wrigley Chewing Gum and Wrigley Field. Same Wrigley, I see you Cubs hat. And they're not in there anymore. Wrigley's not in there, but it's still called the Wrigley Building. It's still an office building. And it is a building designed to look like the Cathedral of Sevilla in Spain. Anybody ever been to Sevilla and recognize it? Cool, awesome. Wow, a lot of you today. That's amazing. So let me reframe that. This is a chewing gum corporate headquarters designed to look like a specific Catholic cathedral in Europe, which is kind of weird, right? This is a style of architecture popular in the early 1920s. It's called European Revivalism. And it is American office towers, American architects relying on traditional European architecture to bring beauty into the American city. And it works. They're incredibly beautiful buildings. They're iconic in the city of Chicago. And they're also really funny when you think about it. European Revivalism. Here's the first of many bridges. Every single bridge on this tour is different, and every single bridge on this tour lifts. We'll get into it. Straight ahead, second tallest building in the city. If you couldn't already tell, it is Trump Tower, 2009 hotel and residential building by the architecture firm Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. Get used to hearing those names. That's an architecture firm that you're going to hear over and over again. We're going to talk about this building at length when we come back in from the lakefront, so we don't have to crane our necks up at it. So pause, and then on the left, look, a kayak tour on the left. There's gonna be so much river traffic on this beautiful Saturday. Boy, we're probably gonna get in some boat drama. We'll see. It always happens on a Saturday like this. On the left, beautiful domed building against the sky. That is another wedding cake of a building, isn't it? This is also European revivalism. This is also an office building built to look like a religious building in Europe. This has got what I call Italian religious architecture. It looks like little Renaissance Roman temples on all the corners and under the dome at the top. This is the Jewelers Building from 1927, just a couple years later than the Wrigley Building in 1924. This was built to be offices for jewelers. It's located in Jewelers Row in downtown Chicago. And it was the tallest building in the city for just a year and a half, but that used to be the top of the city, the beautiful Jewelers Building. Now on the right, for something completely different, those two round skyscrapers coming into view. Those are from the 60s. Yeah, they look like it, right? They look like they're from the 60s. They look like they're something out of the Jetsons. Two circle-based skyscrapers, two of them. The name is Marina City. Nobody actually calls them that. They're called by a nickname. They're called the Corn Cob Towers. Yeah, they look like giant corn. Yes, they do. And they're by the architect Bertrand Goldberg, who loves circle forms in architecture. We're going to see one more building from our circle guy later, Bertrand Goldberg. Now these are apartments. You can tell by the balconies. And these were built in the 60s when nobody lived downtown. This part of the city was completely different from this in the 60s, and this river was completely different in the 60s. We didn't have kayak tours and pleasure cruises in the 60s. This was an industrial river. If you know the term industrial river, you know it's a polite way to say that the river was a dump. The river was a dump, and it smelled and looked like a dump. And the apartments on the corn cobs are set up high above the parking garage levels so that you wouldn't have to smell the stench of the river. And because nobody was living downtown, there was no neighborhood here for people to use in the evening. The building was built with restaurants at the ground level. Look at this little man in formal wear, very cute. Restaurants at the ground level, marina at the river level. It was also built with a grocery store, a bowling alley, an ice skating rink, and a movie theater in the building. Today the movie theater is the House of Blues Chicago, and the corn cobs worked in the 60s. People moved in to downtown even though nobody was living here, and it began interest in residential, recreational use of the riverfront, or it's kind of the first sign of it. Now we build residential on the riverfront. On the left, that brand new blue glass ice cube of a tower. That's 111 West Wacker, luxury high-rise apartments from 2019. The cutouts for balconies, residential building. So yeah, now we build like this on the river, but the corn cobs did it way back in the 60s. Another full boat on the left. To your right, big old yacht parked at the restaurant, RPM Seafood. 4 levels of outdoor dining, and if you have a private boat, you can tie up and climb up for lunch. Life's good, right? To your right, the red brick building. This is the Reed Murdoch from 1914. Red brick building is very different from everything else around us. It was built to be a warehouse in 1914. Back when this was an industrial river, big ships would come in from the Great Lakes. The bridges would lift for them, and the ships would tie up at warehouses like this and drop off or pick up whatever they were shipping. Today this is just an office building. It's the Reed Murdoch, and this is another style of architecture. It's called Prairie School. Basically low and flat, like a prairie. This is Chicago, one of our nicknames, super cute. Paris on the prairie. But yeah, we're a city on the prairie, and we're very connected to the prairie, at least in the ethos of the city. And Prairie School is a local style of architecture. The idea with Prairie School architecture, it's such a simple concept, but it's not coming from a European tradition, right? This is an American style of architecture, and the most famous American architect of all time is a Prairie School guy, Frank Lloyd Wright. Low flat lines, that's Prairie School. If you'd like, you can see the Frank Lloyd Wright Museum while you're in Chicago, but it's out in the residential neighborhoods. You can get there on public transit. Just look up the Frank Lloyd Wright Museum. It is in a neighborhood with 7 different Frank Lloyd Wright homes in one spot. Second floor steakhouse on the right, outdoor dining. Suddenly it's a little bit quieter out here, further into the main branch. Here comes one of our double-decker bridges, L tracks on the top, roadway at the bottom, L, Chicago's iconic public transit, the elevated train. If we're lucky, we'll see a train cross one of these bridges today. And on the other side of the bridge, a massive, massive building. 2 entire city blocks as a building, 25 stories, 4 million square feet. 1929, the Merchandise Mart. Boom, a face full of architecture on the right. This is just a ridiculously huge building. It had its own zip code until 15 years ago, 60654. Now it shares that. This style is Art Deco. I love Art Deco. Art Deco is all about vertical lines, drawing your eyes up, the windows, right? Setbacks at the top like a staircase into the heavens, tall, 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 even on this massive building. And then geometry, like the shiny gold diamond patterns at the top and the bottom of the building. This style is from the Roaring 20s, the era of the hot new automobile, the hot new airplane, the beginnings of mass production. People are excited about machines in this era, and it shows up in Art Deco architecture. It is a futuristic style, which is fun to say because it's from 100 years ago now. And we're going to see a lot of Art Deco on this tour. Art Deco Roaring 20s, futuristic vertical style. We'll talk about why that massive building exists on the way back. We never have enough time on the way in. Welcome to Wolf Point. We'll be here another 2 times on this tour. This is the Y shape of the river. We just left the main branch. Ahead of us to your left, the south branch. Around the bend to the right, the north branch, which is where we go first, depending on traffic anyway, but we'll hit them all. This part of the city has changed a lot, very recently. To your right, we're passing a blue glass tower. Under construction on the right, a blue glass tower. Behind it, there's another blue glass tower. Straight ahead of us, a blue glass tower. To the left, a blue glass tower. To the left, again with Bank of America at the top, a blue glass tower. Notice a trend? These are all brand new buildings from the last 3 years. And they are contemporary skyscraper architecture. If you're wondering what the contemporary skyscrapers look like, here's your answer. I call them ice cubes because they look like ice cubes. They say it doesn't have a name yet. It's called ice cubes. Anyway, these buildings, this is the trend because I think it's a safe look for big buildings right now. These buildings disappear into the sky. They reflect the weather. They reflect the buildings around them. They play safe in the skyline automatically. Nobody is shipping freight into downtown via train on this railroad anymore, but there's plenty of boats that don't fit underneath it. So they keep it lifted permanently. No, it's not broken, and no, it won't get torn down. It is landmark, it's protected. It's basically a big industrial sculpture at this point. Called the River Cottages by Harry Weiss, architect, 1989. All of them are owned by original owners except that one under construction. That was on the market 3 years ago for all of 2 weeks, and it sold for $2.25 million, but no buses today. So, 1929, Art Deco. Yes, that's our opera house. The Lyric Opera performs in here. Their season just started last week. Just started. The opera's going on. Now, this is, if you will, the typical look of the 20s skyscraper.
No more opera.
A whole bunch of these get built in the Art Deco style because, you know, Roaring 20s, lots of money, lots of skyscrapers get built. And then they get finished in 1929, and the stock market crashes, and no skyscrapers get built for like 20 years. So after Art Deco, there's this big gap of 20 years because the Great Depression in the 30s, World War II in the 40s, nobody's using steel for skyscrapers during wartime. When people finally start building skyscrapers again after the Art Deco style, after the war, it's not Art Deco anymore at all. In fact, these buildings don't look like anything that's ever been built before. After the war, the skyscraper style is this on the right. Welcome to the modern era. This is modernism. It's a whole new world after the war. And guess what? I guess we don't need decoration after being so traumatized from a war. This is a skyscraper with no decoration, 0 decoration. The famous quote from the architect who created this style, less is more. That's a Mies van der Rohe quote. He's an architect. He was a teacher at the German Bauhaus. The Nazis kicked him out during World War II. He moved to Chicago, and he's now considered a Chicago architect and the inventor of the glass skyscraper. These are not Mies van der Rohe buildings, but he has skyscrapers that look just like this from 1948 in Chicago, and this is a totally radical style. Modernism, glass blocks modernism. And his style started out radical, but it became standard, as we all know because we've seen buildings like this all over the place. This became the standard style of skyscraper for decades, 40s, 50s, 60s, mid-century modernism, right? Chicago then became the middle of the railroad system and the middle of airport infrastructure, right? It is a physically well-connected central city. That's it. But that's enough to keep businesses headquartered here. That's enough to keep manufacturing located here. You can send your people or your goods all over the world and get them back real easy. And that's Chicago. Population in the city proper, 2.7 million. In the metro area, much larger population, just under 10 million. So we got a lot of people in the suburbs in Chicago. In the burbs, that's my one Chicago accent joke. You're welcome. Okay, on the left, circle forms, balconies, and a marina. Kind of like the corn cobs. This is the same guy, Bertrand Goldberg. This is 20 years after Marina City. This is River City from the 1980s. If you are familiar with Barcelona and Gaudi, totally an influence here. It looks like this is Casa Mila, but as a 1980s modern skyscraper. Now this building, just like the corn cobs, also ahead of its time. Also ahead of its time, all the land ahead of us on the left that looks empty is under development. Over the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see a bunch of construction sites pop up on the left and leave behind 14 apartment skyscrapers. All of them ice cubes, all of them with the mandatory river walk. It'll be like a new waterfront neighborhood in the city of Chicago. And that'll all be coming in on the left. And I will lose my blessed peace and quiet. And the winds pick it up and blow it to the river, which might have been nice, but the river was a dump. The river caught fire. The river passed the fire to the neighborhood to the left, which is still called Printers Row. That's still where professional printing is done in Chicago. In the 1870s, what was in Printers Row? Of course, paper and lumber yards. It was fire's best friend, fuel. So this fire burns for 3 days nonstop, and it destroys 17,000 buildings flat, 4 square miles of the city. For the locals, from Roosevelt, the bridge we're about to pass under, up to Fullerton, flat, completely flat. It was 60% of the city. 100,000 people were left homeless. 300 people died. It's amazing there wasn't more loss of life. I'll tell you how people saved their lives in the fire. They ran into underground tunnels downtown, and they camped out until the fire was done burning, sometimes for days. Or they ran out into the lake, of course, and they stood in the shallows, sometimes for a very long time, and watched their city burn down. The flames rose over 100 feet high. It burned so hot it melted steel buildings to the ground. And it's called the worst urban fire in history. It's also called, weirdly, the best thing that ever happened to Chicago. What? Context. Nobody would ever choose the fire, first of all. Chicago did not have a choice when it came to the fire. But because Chicago was given this tough deal, the worst urban fire in history, Chicago was also given a gift. The perfect blank slate that it left behind. More so than any other city in the world, Chicago is the example of what it would be like if a city could just start over from scratch. That's what Chicago's known for, the blank slate effect. We've had 150 years to build a new city, but you can see on the left, get your cameras out. Photo op. Perfect timing. Who would want to move to Chicago freshly burnt? Of course, architects. Architects moved to Chicago in numbers after the fire. Chicago was in the market for a whole city ASAP, right? Architects moved here and we were happy. 1 feet tall, or 442 meters tall. That building is called the what?
Willis Tower.
I like hearing both answers. This year's the Willis Tower. Trick question, 2 correct answers. A+ for both answers. Willis Tower, Sears Tower. Learn both names, everybody. If you're looking for this building on a map, you want to look for Willis. That is the official name of the building today. That is how it shows up on maps and brochures. However, you might have noticed, in Chicago, everybody still says Sears Tower. Right, locals? Thank you. Thank you. Forced participation. Yes, thank you. It's a cultural thing. Don't ask us to explain ourselves. We just do it. The Sears Tower. What do you think I call it? I call it the Sears Tower. The Sears Tower was built in 1974, built by Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. Same architecture firm as the Gateway Buildings and as Trump Tower. Built to be the Sears corporate headquarters and built to be the tallest building in the world. Yeah. which it was for a very long time, almost 25 years. And then in the 90s, the Petronas Towers got built in Malaysia, and the Sears Tower became instead the tallest building in the country. Yeah. Which it was until 8 years ago. One World Trade was finished in New York City on the former side of the World Trade Center towers. That's officially the tallest building in the US now. Which means, my friends, you are looking at the one and only tallest building in Chicago. Woo! Which I make fun of, but hey, this is an important skyscraper. This is iconic and recognizable for a reason. It was the tallest building in the world for almost 25 years for a reason. Something was invented for it. It's a bit of a game changer. And almost all buildings taller than it are built like it. It's a structural engineering thing called bundled tubes. And I'll explain it when we can see the building more up close. All right, now we'll get back to the Sears in a second. But first, on the right, check out the beautiful stone building with the statue at the top on the pyramid roof. That is the best example of Art Deco on the tour. 1929, Chicago Board of Trade, CBOT, Chicago Board of Trade, from Halliburton Root is the architecture firm. That was the tallest building in Chicago for over 30 years. That used to be like our Sears Tower. That used to be our iconic top of the city. Imagine the base of the building as a square of 9 squares, a 3x3 grid of skyscrapers. This is a tower made of 9 towers. The towers end at different heights, only 2 reach the top. They lend each other strength and stability from the base. And compared to a building of identical height made of 1 tower, sitting right next door in an imaginary extreme windstorm, I would pick that building to be in. Way less sway, way less risk. Bundled tubes, it's a structural stability thing, it's a structural engineering thing, and it was invented for the Sears Tower. Simple concept. It's the only way humans now know to build so tall. That's the Vienna beef hot dog logo of the hot dog slinger, ready to sell you a Chicago style hot dog. I've been served by those Chicagoans many times in my life, the bus driver and the hot dog slinger. There's like celebrity chefs and celebrity artists in here, but I like the bus driver and the hot dog guy. I love this art. I hope it stays up for a long time. There's kayakers in our way. To the left, people on the balcony on the 3rd floor of this ice cube at the bottom of the glass. People sunning on Saturday. And on the left, the massive merchandise mart. Why was this ridiculously huge building built? It was built to be a warehouse for the world's first department store, Marshall Field's. Department stores were invented in Chicago. Unfortunately for Marshall Field's, they had this massive warehouse built. It was finished in 1929. The stock market crashed. They went bankrupt. They were forced to sell their building below cost pretty much immediately. Who could afford to buy this massive building in the Great Depression? That's right, the Kennedys. Joe Kennedy, JFK's daddy, bought the building, and it is during Kennedy ownership that these green heads were installed on the left. Look at all those Hawaiian shirts, that's real cute. Okay, so these green heads on pedestals, people like to call those the Pez Dispenser Hall of Fame. Ha ha ha. And they are kind of a Hall of Fame. They're copper bust portraits of retail names like Marshall Field, Montgomery Ward, Woolworth, Filene, names from the retail industry. It's a nod to the history of the building. The Kennedys no longer own the merchandise mart, but they do own Wolf Point Towers, where the construction site is. That is Kennedy Real Estate Development. To your right, a kayak tour lined up along the floating gardens. And it looks like the Chicago Parks District has fishing rods back there. If anybody likes fishing and you want to fish on the Chicago River, the Parks District sets you up with a rod, boat free, if you want to come down on the Riverwalk. Let's talk about the Riverwalk now. Come enjoy the Riverwalk. It's new. The city spent $112 million on it 3 years ago. And it is a big improvement on the old Riverwalk. We did have a Riverwalk. It was kind of sad. It was like a sad little sidewalk with a sad little bench on it. And every time you reached a bridge, surprise, you get to climb the stairs up, cross the busy street, and climb back down. Nobody wanted to use the old Riverwalk. The new Riverwalk is connected under all the bridges. It's uninterrupted for a full mile. It's 100% ADA accessible, so it's accessible to people with disabilities. And every block is different. They call them rooms. They're blocks. We got the Adirondack chairs on the lawn, floating gardens, these fountains which sometimes catch babies to play in them. So cute. So, so cute. Theater style seating up ahead of us on the right. Look how chill that looks. But also bars and restaurants, places to dock your private boat if that's kind of like your living. Something for everybody on the Riverwalk. It's a waterfront in the middle of downtown Chicago. Also, come enjoy the Riverwalk. It's popular with both locals and visitors. I guarantee you at least probably half of these people are locals. And sometimes you see people like come down from the skyscrapers with like inflatable paddleboards and they'll like launch their watercraft from the Riverwalk. That's always mind-blowing to me. Anyway, come enjoy the Riverwalk. To your right and up, the glassy building with the columns up and down and the triangles at the top like a pediment on a Greek temple. This is a 1992 skyscraper, and this is another thing the postmodernists like to do. Take the glass skyscraper, the modern glass skyscraper, add architecture styles from the past as decoration.
Hi.
Do the vlog.
Say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
This is the vlog channel. I told them I'm going to check in with you.
Okay.
How is everything going?
Fine. Don't shoot. Hanging out. Everything's going good.
Everything's going good? He's been babysitting.
Yes.
Show them what they did.
Yeah, coloring today.
They colored his sleeve. They do that to me too. And Micah is desperate
Cat.
for a cat.
Yeah.
What's this cat's name? Tell me. Bob?
No.
Walter?
No.
Steve?
No.
Frank?
No.
Mike? Bill?
Toby.
This is Toby.
We don't like slobber dog.
Hi. Oh, you don't like slobber dog? You are so pretty.
Too slobbery.
You're so
Yeah.
pretty. Oh my god, he's so soft too. Dang it. Name your price.
Yeah, like you're gonna try that from Jessica. From her dead hands.
No, he's a good kitty. You're such a good kitty.
Pick on it.
Riley, tell everyone about your shots.
Tell them about the shots.
Right here and right here.
So both arms, right? Which one's sore? That's one's sore.
Oh
okay.
no. You were so brave
You're
today.
so brave.
Okay, say bye to the vlog people.
Bye, vlog people.
Bye, vlog people.
I got my eyes on you, butt people.
That's the best comment ever.
Bye.